It all started off as a hobby. I was just very passionate about cars, and I was just brought up in an environment where you were taught to think out of the box and challenge yourself, and that's exactly what I did. Back in the days, I've said this many times, I'm sure a lot of people have heard this before, but when I first started, I went against all odds. I built a garage at the back of the house that was bigger than the house, and as a result, everybody thought I was crazy. Who the hell do you think you are? But I only had one intention, one objective, and that was to make one car. That's all I wanted to do.
Leading and scaling a business isn't hard because you lack ideas. It's hard because your time, your team's time, and your focus get eaten alive by the daily grind. Too many leaders are overwhelmed, under pressure, and bogged down by low-leverage tasks. I've learned this the hard way, scaling Nobody Studios, advising fast-growing startups and Fortune 500s, all while leading multiple ventures at once. I've seen firsthand how even the best executives get buried in meetings, lose strategic visibility, and burn out just trying to keep up. That's why I built the AI Executive Coaching Program, the same frameworks and tools that I've used in my own work to make it more meaningful, better leveraged, and more impactful. We're helping leaders in global businesses get hours back every week, turning chaos into clarity and operating with more leverage than ever before. This isn't theory. This is about identifying the traits you need to unlearn, the tasks pivotal to your success, and the tools that can be built into workflows to optimize your capabilities every day. From transforming meeting scripts into transcripts, into action plans, and spotting performance patterns you can't see on your own, we're upgrading the way executives lead. If you want to scale without losing your edge, let's talk. You'd be surprised how quickly you can lead at a whole new level.
Enjoying the podcast? Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on YouTube. This way, you won't miss any episode, and it greatly supports our podcast.
Today's guest is someone who chose a very different road and then committed to walking it properly. Gerry Khouri is the founder of Bufori, a handcrafted automobile brand that defies almost every convention of the modern car industry. And while manufacturers choose scale, speed, and efficiency, Gerry built a business around craftsmanship and long-term thinking, creating cars by hand in small numbers with deeply personal intent. What fascinates me about Gerry isn't what he built, but how he chose to build it, and more importantly, what he had let go of along the way. The assumptions about growth, the pressure to conform, the idea that success and how it had to look like is very unique to him. I had the pleasure of meeting him at the Singapore Grand Prix earlier this year. He even gave me this great t-shirt I'm wearing. And this conversation is about choosing really your own definition of success, about unlearning the rules you never agreed to and what it takes to stay in tune or true to yourself over the long haul. Gerry, welcome to the Unlearn podcast. I had the pleasure of meeting you at the Singapore Grand Prix this year, where you were showcasing your fantastically handmade, really beautiful, beautiful cars. And not only were you talking about the cars, you were giving away these beautiful, beautiful t-shirts that I'm wearing here today. So I couldn't be on the show and not wear it. For you, your story is fascinating. Being an entrepreneur, being an engineer, growing up in Australia and moving to Malaysia to build these cars that are used and purchased by some of the most wealthiest, customized seeking people on the planet, which is amazing. But when I meet you, it's almost like straight away I was like, well, Bufori doesn't feel like a company that followed the sort of classic playbook. Before we get even into the business, I just want to know, where did your instincts to do things differently come from?
That's the $1 million question, I guess. It all started off as a hobby. I was just very passionate about cars, and I was just brought up in an environment where you were taught to think out of the box and challenge yourself, and that's exactly what I did. Back in the days, it's a long story, and I've said this many times. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this before, but for your viewers, just to hear my side of the story, when I first started, I went against all odds. I built a garage at the back of the house that was bigger than the house, and as a result, everybody thought I was crazy. Who the hell do you think you are? But, I only had one intention, one objective, and that was to make one car. That's all I wanted to do. I was restoring cars at a very young age. I was buying old cars, working on them over a weekend and then selling them on the Monday. And I made some good money from that. The real intention was I wanted to make a car from nothing. And I thought, back in the days, if they could build cars like that then with little technology that they had, why can't we do it today? And that's all I was trying to do, is just to satisfy this little crazy desire that I had, And when I started, literally everybody went against me. People thought I was crazy. Who do you think you are, Henry Ford or what? And now I'm Gerry Khouri, and I'm just passionate, and I'm going to just follow my heart. A little boring, but I came from a very conservative family, and my family lifestyle was you finish work at the end of the day and you come home and you stay home for the rest of the evening until the next day of work. Whereas all my friends used to finish work and go to the pub or go and play football or go to the TIB and bet on the horses or just chill out and hang out. And I was never allowed to do those things. So I needed something to do. So I come home and built this garage for a start, and then started to build this car from nothing. And when the car was finished, everybody wanted to be a friend again. And by now you realize who your real friends were. And
Right on. It is. It's that lonely path of entrepreneur, and it really, as you're describing this, what I'm sort of thinking is early on, it's like, what did success look like for you, right? And how much that definition actually didn't come from other people. It had to come from yourself, which is sort of a path that many entrepreneurs have to go down, right? Every time I've started a business, I grew up in Ireland, and the first thing you say to somebody when you're like, I've got an idea for a company, they just hit you with 10 things about why it's not going to work.
Exactly.
No one gets behind you, and that's not maybe behind you, but people's natural mindset is to go into critical, break it down, like face risk. This is risk that you can't surmount. So talk a little bit about how, you were sort of like trying to prove to yourself more so what success was, and not necessarily listening to these voices around you.
Well, first of all, the voices around me were my two brothers, who I love very much, and I owe them everything I know, to be honest with you. But they were worried that I was going to give up a building career, a very successful building career, for a crazy hobby that I had in the backyard of the house. And sure enough, that crazy idea they had became a reality for me. I literally gave up a beautiful building career, a very successful career, to focus on my dream. And my life is living a dream, literally right now. But the success for me is the ability to be able to start something and finish it. And the moment you've finished it, you've succeeded. It's no longer about the money. It's no longer about, does anyone want to buy it? It's just, first of all, can I build a product? And if I can build a product and can I succeed, and not only build it, but also get it approved by the authorities, then you've already succeeded. And that was all I was out to do. But it went further than that. The moment somebody wanted to buy that first car that I made, that was the icing on the cake. That was a message to me that, you're onto something here. You've already succeeded, but now when people want your product, what more do you want? And that's when I realized that this is really what I want to do. This is really what I want to, improve on, and this is what I want to, where I want to go with what I've started. And I literally, it took me a couple of years. So I kept on working on the building site. And when I come home, for a couple of years, I'd still go to a factory. So just a long story short, I built the garage at the back of the house, built the first car there. Neighbours and everyone were very unhappy. I was always being reported to the authorities, and I got threatened by a lot of people at the time. And then eventually I opened up a very small factory on a weekly rental basis. And I stayed there from 1988 until 1994 or 1995, something like that. And I never had a lease. And we grew from one very small factory to 4 medium-sized factories. And we went from one person to having about 70 people in Australia at the time. And it all started because one person wanted to buy this car. And when I built the car for him, that was the icing on the cake, as I said, just to tell me that, if somebody is willing to pay money for something that you've dreamed up in your backyard, then you must be onto something. And then somebody else wanted to borrow a car that I'd already built, the very first car I built. And when they started to borrow it, and they bring it back reluctantly, and then they say, can we buy it off you? And I say, no, you can't buy it, but I'll build you one. And then I built them one. And then each time I finished one, somebody would buy it. And then my brothers wanted a car each. So I started building 2 cars for my brothers. And each time I'd finish them, somebody would buy them. And that was really when it all came together. And we thought, okay, my brothers are on side. My heart's in what I'm doing. This is what I love doing. I'm having a good time. I started recruiting a bunch of people, and we became very good at what we're doing in a very, very short period of time because we were passion driven. We weren't driven by money. We were driven by a desire to be able to produce something with the limited resources that were available to us. And that's really the success for me. That's really what brought me to where I am today. It was hard. It was very, very difficult. When the people that surround you, the people that you care about the most, don't support you, or only see fault in you, or only find reason why you shouldn't give up something else to do this. They can't see what you see. Then it tells you something, and you struggle to sleep at night, and your mind is always working overtime. And is what these people telling you right, or are they right and I'm wrong, or who do I follow? What do I believe? And I remember my father, who's very old at the time, but he just took $500 out of his pocket. And he said to me, you go out and you prove to your brothers and you prove to everyone that you can do this. Now, the $500 is not a lot of money, but it was enough for me to motivate me, to really help me go out and just do this. Not because of the $500. That $500 today is peanuts. You can't do anything with that. But it was really the message to me that, I've got to go out and do this. I've got my dad's support, and I've got my brothers that I need to prove this to more than anybody. And that's exactly what I did. I just, I was motivated. I was on fire, just couldn't slow me down. I was just so energetic and so motivated and so full of, fire inside me that I've just got to make this thing work at any cost.
There's so many great lessons in what you're saying here, Gerry. Like, first of all, like, what a moment for your father to do something like that as a show of support, encouragement, and probably great leadership in his own right to sort of, create that space for you as someone to say you've got this back no matter what. There's people behind you here. What a great sort of lesson in leadership. But you've talked about so many other little anecdotes there that many of the entrepreneurs, even in the tech world, will be listening to, about how you were thinking big, but you started small and then learned what worked and what didn't. And as you built each one of these products, like learning how to do the craft, one product leading to another product, leading to the next step in scale, as you got more confident and you're sort of reducing risk and you're solving these problems that many people would say in the beginning, they're tough problems to solve, but you're getting through it. But exactly. What I love, is that you, like, Bufori chose this craftsmanship in a world obsessed with speed and volume to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. So what did you have to stop doing, or maybe stop chasing, to sort of persist with that strategy? Resources, I'm sure, obviously they're finite and tight, but there's a mentality you're sort of talking about that's programmed in almost to you, the way you're describing this. So right. How did you sort of recognize that as a strategy to build not only these cars, but the business as you went along?
First of all, there's no book that teaches you how to make a car from nothing. So, and there's no one that can teach you this stuff. There's literally a handful of people in the world that have ever done what I'm doing. You can probably count them on your two hands. And like I say, there's no book that teaches you how to build a car from nothing. I'm a self-taught man, so nobody taught me how to do what I do. I learned this literally the hard way, although it was probably the best lesson of my life, because, when you're so young and when you're so energetic and you're so determined to prove to everybody that you can do something, and when you start succeeding at it, you don't get a big head. You've got to always be honest with yourself that, and I was very down to earth. My head never swelled. But what I was very confident, and I knew that nothing can stop me if I just stay focused and stay true to myself and, take things to the limits, literally to the limits. The more somebody would tell me why you can't do something, the more fire I had in me to be able to go out and make it happen, just to be able to say, well, what you just said to me was wrong, and I'm going to prove you otherwise. So much to that, almost to that extent. What I didn't have is I didn't have resources. I didn't have deep pockets. I didn't have people with knowledge around me. I was employing people that were unemployed. I was employing people that just needed a job. and I gave them opportunities. I learned this the hard way. So I cannot say that I learned what I know because of the people I employed. I did not. I learned this literally on my own, and just by being passionate about what I do. But what I lacked was, and if I could do this all over again, what would I do differently? Probably nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. But what I could have appreciated more is some resources around me. I learned the hard way. So, every mistake I made, which would normally, like, first of all, mistakes are very expensive in this business.
Yeah.
And when you make a mistake, you've got to fix that mistake. Either you give up or you go back to the drawing board and you find an alternative way to do it. And every car you make is basically better and better and better. It's basically an R&D exercise until you become a master of your trade. And it's they always say that experience is the greatest lesson of life, and that's what I had. I just had an experience because of the hard work that I put into it, and the determination. And I was never afraid of having grease under my nails and dirty in my hands and covering myself in composite dust and stuff like that. Nothing could stop me. If somebody doesn't know something and there's no book that teaches you how to do it, you've got to find a way to make it happen. You've got to find a way to be able to do it. And it got to the stage where I started to lead by example. Do as I do, not do as I say. And
Right on. Yeah.
I still practice that philosophy to this very day. It's 40 years. This coming May, this company will be 40 years of age. And that's a long time. And until this day, I'm still leading by example. Now, I'm not here to paddle my canoe. I don't need to do that. Anyone who knows me will tell you that I lead by example. I'm very level-headed, very down to earth, and nobody has to know everything, and nobody knows everything, not even me. But if you know something, then well and good. If you don't know something, own up to it. And it's okay not to know everything. I tell all my staff, I don't expect you to know all the answers. You don't have to know how to do everything. But what you've got to do is be honest with yourself. If you're passionate and you've got a desire to achieve an objective and you want to be successful at what you do and a master of your trade, then pay attention. Do as I do, not do as I say. So I will show you first time, you can learn from me. And that was the greatest lesson. And I was never fortunate enough to have that opportunity to learn from somebody else. So every time I wanted to do something, I had to literally do it on my own. Even the very first factory that I had, I needed a spray booth to paint the car. And because of the lack of support that I had, and even though the family was very successful in the construction industry, my brothers were very, very careful with how we spent our money. And to them, they were fueling a passion for a hobby that I just had. It was never meant to be a business in those early days. They thought, okay, he's going to build a couple of cars and then he's going to come back to the construction industry. And I needed a spray booth to paint these cars. But every spray booth that you think about buying, even in those days, is going to cost you 50,000 Australian dollars. That was more than double the price of a car that I was selling. And those spray booths could only park a car with almost no panels in it. And these are cars that I was making that have got lots and lots of panels on them. So how am I going to paint one of these cars all at the same time in a spray booth that is not designed for a car like this? So, what do I do? And I can't afford to get somebody to go out and build me a special spray booth. And Department of Environment was very, very particular about the environment and what we do with wastewater and the pollutants that come from these paints. And every single spray booth in Australia at the time they had water traps in the floor and they were downdraft, and the water is basically a filter to catch all the dust and the paint overspray. And because I was on a weekly rental basis, I couldn't afford to go through this process of getting all the approvals from the authorities. So I built my own spray booth. And this spray booth that I built was a downdraft spray booth, but I had no water in the bottom. What I had was a dry filter system. And I think we were regarded as the first dry floor spray booth in Australia at the time. And like I say, it's all because you've got a desire to achieve something and you don't have the deep pockets to be able to do it like everybody else in the business. So my brothers wouldn't give me the money to go out and spend the money on buying a spray booth that's bespoke. So I go out and I make one. And, along the way, we have to make our molds, we have to make our tooling, we make our own jigs, we make our own fixtures. Everything we do is was done the hard way.
I love this
necessity is the mother of invention. I keep hearing in my head as I'm listening to you share here, which is great. But the thing that's also fascinating is that you are building, some of the most handcrafted cars on the planet, right? Like these are luxury items where the detail is extreme, the attention to like quality, whether it's the leather in the seats, whether it's the stitching in the seats, right down to the machinery and devices that you use inside the product. But sometimes I think luxury gets confused with perfectionism. And for many people, that actually becomes an inhibitor to getting the product out into the world. So what did you have to unlearn about perfectionism in order to keep making progress, in these examples that you're sharing about, especially not even like starting to build the earliest days, because really you don't have a choice. But now as you're starting to scale this business, maybe there's a bit more resources. It's as easy to fall into similar traps even as you grow. So what were some of the sort of counterbalances you put in place to help you, sort of stay nimble and innovative, even though you were starting to get more resources as this business grew?
It's challenging, First of all, I mean, everyone regarded me as a perfectionist, even from a very, very young age. But if you ask me, I'm far from being a perfectionist. It's a little bit like an artist. You're building something, or you're making something, or creating something, and before you even finish it, you're already thinking about the next one.
Right on. Yeah.
And you're never satisfied. 40 years later, I'm still not satisfied. If you walk through our factory, you'll see lots and lots of R&D projects, because I'm always thinking ahead of myself. And I feel that I can do better if I, stop this one and I focus on the next one. But at the end of the day, it's also a commercial business. So I've got to be honest with myself about how perfect is perfect and what is a real definition of luxury, because that's really what I'm about. And Bufori, no doubt, we strive for perfection. Perfection's just part of your imagination. We can just imagine what perfection is, but there's nothing perfect in this world. But luxury is a very good word, a very, very desirable word for me, because what makes me, or what makes Bufori special, is the attention to detail. And the attention to detail is not just in the quality, the fit and finish. The attention to detail is in the luxury, the ability to be able to design a car to meet all the requirements and all the desires of an individual customer, something that is truly bespoke. And I'll challenge it. I think we're the most bespoke car on the planet. I don't think anybody makes a car more bespoke than Bufori does. Like I said, it's not about making something perfect every single time. Just a little boring topic for you.
No, I love the anecdotes. They're always the things that make me sort of smile and go, yeah, because it resonates, right? Like this is how software engineers care about their craft too.
Okay, so we don't assemble a car. We make a car. Yes, we go out and we buy an engine, we buy a transmission, we buy brake calipers and rotors, we buy the wheels now. We used to make our own wheels. We buy airbags, we buy some switches and buttons and glass and things like that. But the rest of the car we make. And we make more of a car than we buy, a hell of a lot more. We make all the suspension, we make shock absorbers, we make the body, we make the chassis, we make steering systems, we make all the interior parts, we make a dashboard, we make the air conditioning system, we make all the exhausts, we make all the mountings, we make all the hard points, hinges and locking mechanisms. So we make more of a car than you can imagine. Now, if you took just one of those items, just any one of those items, now go out and produce it to the word perfection, then you'll start to understand why the word perfection is a very big word. And to me, it's really just a fantasy word. And when you start to realize this is a commercial business at the end of the day, it's no longer a hobby. You've got to be able to make some money. So you can't emphasize on perfection on every single component you make. I think our parts catalog for Bufori Geneva exceeds 10,000 individual items. And if we make probably 95% of that. And if we were going to exercise absolute perfection on every single component, you're going to wait 10 years for a car. So there's no such thing as perfection in this day and age, unfortunately. So, but there is a big word in the word, there's a big meaning to the word luxury, and that is being able to produce something with honesty, with integrity, and with the intention to make it last a very long time. And that's what we're about. So an individual component on a Bufori, let me give you an example of a shock absorber for your suspension.
Yeah.
In any motor car, it doesn't matter what it is, when a shock absorber is spoiled in a normal car, in any luxurious car, any hypercar or supercar or sports car, mass produced or otherwise, when a shock absorber fails, what do? You take it off, you throw it away, and you go and get another one and put it on the car. But what do you do in a Bufori? You pull the shock absorber apart, you change the oil, you change the seals, you add the gas, you do what you need to do, and put it back together again, and it's as good as new for another 25 years. And a door hinge. In a door hinge in a normal car, they just have metal to metal, and they pivot on a very fine tolerance, so there's no movement. Sometimes they might have a bearing, sometimes they might have a sleeve or a bush. But what we've got is a door hinge that is designed to be dismantled, and you can change every individual component in that door hinge to ensure that there's no tolerance and there's no free play, and you've got a door that opens and closes beautifully every single time. And the whole car is designed and produced around that quality and around that philosophy. So it's designed to last for generations, not to last for 10 or 15 years. And so when you talk about perfection, it's a very big word for me. Yes, we're regarded as perfectionists. We're always striving to be better and better. Every single car gets better than the one before it. But, as far as we're concerned, luxury is the more important word than perfection. And the ability to be able to produce that vehicle to meet the desire of a customer is magic. That's really what makes this work for us. They want quality. That's why they come to Bufori. If somebody comes to me and says, I love your car, but it's too expensive, then Bufori is not for you. Okay, simple as that. Expensive is a very, very big word. And what is expensive to you is not always expensive to someone else. So you only get what you pay for in this day and age. Now, I don't build a car to compete with the masses, and I don't build a car to compete with another car manufacturer. I build a car to compete with myself, and that is to produce a vehicle that is designed to last for generations. That's a very difficult thing to do. And the only way you can do that is to put your heart and soul into it, and be honest with it. And every single car we make is honest.
Yeah, no, I love this idea, because I think it's one of the things that maybe when people look from the outside, when they think about even competition, I always think people get wrong. When they see entrepreneurs building things, they're always like, well, who's your number one competitor, or who are you battling against? And yet time and time again, I felt this certainly personally, but I see it in great entrepreneurs too as well, that the battle is not with anyone exterior. The battle is with yourself and how you can get better and how you can push your boundaries. And sure, people around you might feel like you're pushing back on people, that you're going after the unattainable, that you must need an enemy to do this. But what I have found personally is I don't need an enemy. I just like the pursuit of improvement, of things being better. And ultimately, what you described is this customer outcome and feedback. I talk to many entrepreneurs, even when I've built and launched products, the most satisfying moment, it's not what you create, because you have all these imperfections in what you've created. They niggle at you. They make you want to build more. But it's this feedback from people who use the product that you've created, and you've made their experience better, that the joy that they feel from, in your world, a fantastic automobile you've created for them to enjoy. In my world, it might be solving a challenge that they have, using technology to make their life simpler, easier, or more productive for them. And they recognize that and share it back with you, So I think it's always nice, for people to hear that really, the person you're up against is yourself, your own capabilities, your self-beliefs, your limits. And if you can keep pushing them, you're always going to create great things if you come from that mindset, rather than looking for an enemy or someone else to fight, or somebody else that you're trying to beat. Like that's the road to sort of perdition, I've often find, especially with creativity. You need people to inspire you, sure, people to see something that's amazing and you go, wow, how could I do that? Maybe better. But the pursuit has to be with your own improvement, I think. And That's something, again, it's great to hear you sort of share that. And it also makes me want to ask you this question of, you're saying the business is, coming up to 40 years, right? And for me, again, that becomes even more interesting when what part of yourself did you have to sort of learn or unlearn to stay in this game for the long haul, right? Like, yes, there's passion, yes, there's a pursuit of excellence, but what keeps the excitement and the energy going?
That's a
You know,
good question, very good question. And I've got to say, there's a lot of things in this business that you got to unlearn. If it was that simple, there'd be a million people like me doing what I'm doing today. You can count us all on one hand. There's only a handful of us. There's plenty of guys who have attempted this sort of business with very deep pockets. They last 5, 6, maybe 7 years, 10 years at the most. There's 3 or 4 of us that have survived more than that. And I think I'm the second longest lasting handmade car on the planet. The oldest would be Morgan, followed by Bufori, and then you've got Pagani and Koenigsegg. I don't think there's anyone else out there.
it's a pretty small, quite interesting
Yeah, it's
list.
very
All
niche,
right, that's
for
pretty
sure.
nice.
For
Yeah.
sure, very niche. But the one thing that I've had to unlearn is, every time when my brothers were shareholders in this business, and when I've had other shareholders in the past, and when you've got shareholders, they all talk about the bottom line. They all talk about the financial abilities of the company, making money at the end of the day. And as much as important as that is, if you're here just for the money, then don't do this business. There is money in this business. There's very good money in this business. But the money doesn't flow like it does in any other business. It's very different. We've got a very healthy order book. So we're not in a situation where we don't have orders. We've got a factory that is really understaffed. We've got 130 people here. We've got orders for the next couple of years at least. And we don't even have a sales team. But the thing that we don't have is the resources that surround us. We're not in a country like USA or like in Germany or in Europe, in the UK or even Australia, where if I need a service provider, if I need someone to do some machining, or if I need someone to help me design a component, I can get it done on the corner shop sort of thing. In Malaysia, it's almost impossible to find these service providers. And so how do you do these sort of things? And I'm not trying to be clever. I'm just trying to be economical. I'm trying to be efficient. I'm trying to be logical. And I need to solve a problem. So I've got to invest in technology and innovation and capex basically to be able to design and invent machines and equipment to be able to do what I need to solve a problem. So you can't buy that technology in Malaysia. I can't get somebody to deliver a product for me, even a single component. So I've got to do things literally on my own. And the reason we make so much of a car under one roof is because we don't have access to these resources. We don't have access to that infrastructure of support services. And as a result, I end up with a business that's got 15 profit centers. If I decide to expand them to that level, than just one company which produces a car. So now I can offer that service to many, many different businesses. And that's why, as a company, we're very diversified. But just going back to your original question, so we had to put aside making money first. That was the first thing. So, yes, we are here to make money, and we do make money, but I don't think like normal businessmen who think, okay, at the end of every month, we need to have a 40% return on our investment. It doesn't work like that for this business. You're not going to make money like that. There's a lot more money to be made. Just to share a little example with you, as I mentioned, we're very diversified. So one of the things that we do is we've diversified to offering an engineering service to car companies. So car companies struggle with certain things. They might struggle with designing a component, or they might struggle with designing a complete prototype car, or they might have some reverse engineering problems, or they've got an electrical problem with the car and they can't resolve it. Or they want to produce relatively small series of right-hand drive cars from a left-hand drive vehicle, or left-hand drive vehicles from a right-hand drive car. So we offer a service to these car companies now, where our service fee is basically a lot of money for us, but it's very small money for them.
Yeah.
And they can't get anyone else to do it as effectively and efficiently as we do, and certainly not in the region. And we're able to do things a lot faster than what anyone else can. So, and as a result, we make a lot more money from offering those services So what I'm trying to get at is by using the resources that we had to create innovation and technology and different ways of doing things allows us to be able to diversify and offer these services to other companies.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, well, this I love this pattern. It's one I use in my own business too, as well. Like when we were building the venture studio, the interesting thing about building a sort of incubator is the promise to the entrepreneur is that you're giving them all these services that they need so they can just focus on their craft, if you will, the craft of the business that they're creating. But you've got the marketing put in place, you've got the sales team, you've got the engineering team, so they can really go deep on their problem and accelerate. But what we learned by building companies as a business, that's our factory, we build companies, is that a lot of these services that we were creating internally as capabilities that we need were actually services the industry needs, just like you're describing. And suddenly, we were building internal services that became products, if you will, in their own right that we could resell out to the market. A simple example is one of our companies, Avalify, it's a patenting product. So you upload a business idea and then it runs a patent, an IP check, or if you're infringing a patent in 200 million patents in 170 jurisdictions worldwide. They do it for like $250. A lawyer would charge you a minimum 30, 40 grand for that. So instantly we were building these tools that helped us identify, high potential problems and businesses that we could protect, and then realize, well, entrepreneurs need this service too. And you sort of flip it around and expose that to the world, and it becomes a profit center in itself, which also helps your business grow and diversify. So I think, it's one of these like little tactics again that about, as you're describing, as you grow, you scale, you build capability internally that is valuable externally. And then, as you're playing with economics as well, but you're also playing with talent and capability building, which, you're obviously investing in training these engineers, these builders. And again, it just makes the business more robust, which is, again, a great path, to sort of, understand. So, for founders who are building something deeply personal, especially as you've described your pursuit of excellence in automotive, what should they be thinking about before they scale? Because you obviously were in that moment, right? Of, again, this idea of luxury, craftsmanship. One of the challenges is I see people fall into navel gazing when those words are sometimes used, and they're trying to get again, everything perfect. But you found this healthy tension between excellence and also execution and delivery. So what were some of the things that you may say to yourself for people who are doing these passion projects that mean a lot to them, but they also need to balance the commercial upside? What are one or two thoughts that come to your mind?
First of all, like I said before, you've got to be honest with yourself. You can have big dreams and you can think big, but you've got to be honest. Really, what is it you're capable of doing? How committed are you to the project? And if you're committed, you can dream as big as you want to be. Your dreams are only going to come real and come to reality if you're really committed to what you're trying to do. You cannot be more committed than I am to what I do. A lot of people that I employ, you've got to stop listening to people around you too. People don't know what's going through your own head. I'm passionate. Like I said before, I lead by example. I'm not motivated by money. I'm motivated by a desire to deliver on a promise. And when people come along, especially consultants, big words, they come in and they tell you what you can and can't do and how you're doing things wrong. I would never say that. I would say, I'm just different. To you, it might be wrong, but I know what it took to get to where I am, and I'm still doing this. Incidentally, what people don't realize, this is a debt-free company. So to operate a company like this for 40 years with no debt or liability or external funding is a major challenge. How the hell do you do that? And if I'm wrong, then tell me how else I should do this. I'd like to see someone else do it. But dream big. It's okay to dream big, but be honest with yourself and follow your heart. And don't be afraid of the hard work. And don't ever be afraid of people putting you down, because when they do put you down, a lot of people just give up. And so, you know what? If 10 people are going to tell me I'm wrong, then maybe I am wrong. I'm only one guy, and, maybe I am wrong. So maybe I should listen to the advice of all these consultants. So I wouldn't, I take it with a pinch of salt. It's an opinion, and I respect people's opinions. But at the end of the day, I have the final say. And I always surround myself with good people. I'm fortunate today. I'm surrounded by great people. If you look at all the people we employ, I think 80% of our staff have been with us for close to 25 or 30 years. Some actually, there's one guy who just retired after 30 years with Bufori. 30 years, come on. I mean, that's a long time. And don't forget, we're a foreign-based company that migrated to Malaysia. And for someone to be with us for 30 years in Malaysia, that's a long, long time. And so you surround yourself with people, and you're only as good as the people you employ. Felix is our GM, and he's a great guy. And I never have to think twice about any decision we make because I know he's always got my back. I've got a great executive director. I've got a great finance team. I've got a great HR team. You're only as good as the people you employ. And my design team, my engineering team, I'm very, very fortunate. But it was very difficult to create that team. That team wasn't created by friendship. That team was created with intelligence, knowing the difference between what was right and what was wrong. And we don't want yes people. This is a company that's an open book policy. We don't want people to just agree with everything you say. So I want every entrepreneur out there to understand that success doesn't come from employing people that are just going to agree with everything that the boss says. Every time you agree to something, whether it's right or wrong, that company is destined to failure. It will fail, just a question of time. But employ people that are going to support you. Employ people that have got your back. Employ people that are going to tell you what you really need to know, not what you want to know. And that's really the difference between making you good or making you great. And I don't want to be good. I want to be great at what I do. And to be able to make this company great, I've got to be able to absorb all of the criticism that my own people that I paid to work here have got to share with me. So if I can't take that, then I shouldn't be in this business in the first place. Okay, so and it's very, very easy for the outside world to come and tell you what you're doing is wrong, and that's okay. Okay, so like I said before, we take criticism, we take it well, and I respect people's opinion. But the opinion that matters the most is when you pay somebody to tell you what to do or how to do it, or to keep an eye on things for you, and they tell you what's going wrong, and this is what we should do to overcome it. They're the people you have to listen to. Because you're only one pair of eyes, you're only one pair of ears and one pair of hands. And when you employ, 25 people around you who are good at what they do and they're loyal to you and they're not yes men, then you know that you're on the right path and on the right track to succeed.
This has been a great little reminder for myself, both personally and professionally, about the power of a team and how to really be thoughtful about how you create it, and welcome, as you say, challenge from the folks on the front line, solving these problems for you and engaging them. Listen, it's been amazing to have you on the show. It's a great business that you've built. Congratulations on your upcoming 40 years, and I'm sure there's probably another 40 years in you as well listening to you on this show. Thanks again for joining us.
Pleasure is mine. Thanks very much, Barry.
Thanks so much for listening. If you found this episode useful, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please consider leaving a rating or review, as it helps others find our podcast. For more episode and details about the show, visit barryoreilly.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.